We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. Got another show with another guest, and I know you guys like this guest. I do too because it's kind of nice to have a couple of old guys just kind of going back and forth on what we see going on in news and in government. And Tony is with us from South Carolina. A lot of fucked up shit to talk about, so it'll be a busy one today. But before we get to that, I have to ask you about those storms going through Georgia, South and North Carolina and Florida.
We first time ever all our devices. First of all, hi Blue Tribe. I know you guys are out there. So we had an alert for tornado warning at 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning. Scared the living shit out of us. So we were all in bed. It woke us all up, and then my wife kind of panicked, I guess. So being a former meteorologist, I did the smart. I did probably the stupid thing from her. I just went outside, was looking looking around, and listening. It was still dark outside. I go, all right, my dog's got to go to the bathroom. Got to get him out before we get hit with anything. I didn't really expect anything. If I'd heard trees going down, we would have ran for it. Meanwhile, my wife ran into the bathroom, woke up our adult son who lives in another part of the house, and he took cover in his bathroom, and I took the dogs out. Of course, when I take the dogs out, that's when we got hit with rain and some ice pellets. So we had a little bit of hail, and the dogs ran back up the stairs and left me out there. So no damage. I mean, we've been pretty fortunate, but again, that was the first time that has happened. Kind of, I know there was some landings in the area, general area where I live in Aiken, South Carolina, but I haven't heard of any damage. And maybe tomorrow there'll be a little bit more news. I certainly didn't see anything on Facebook. So Facebook's got various city groups, Aiken information, Aiken this, Aiken that. And by combing it, you'll find out local information. Nothing. So I guess we got spared, which is perfectly fine with me. It's why I moved to this area in the first place. No snow, no hurricanes. Well, I can't say that. We just got hit with a hurricane the last summer, first time in all the years I lived here. But generally, it's a pretty safe area weather-wise.
Well, my son's down in Savannah, and he sent me a text saying, "Yeah, we got tornado warnings down there," and people are freaking out, of course, down there. My son's from Minnesota, so tornado warnings are kind of a common thing. And after the tornado warning, I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Ah, we got a little rain, little wind. It was no big deal." But I have heard reports that in these storms, that 35 people died. So there has been some damage and some casualties.
Well, I looked at the radar, and for the first time, I didn't see orange. Orange is for thunderstorms. If you look at weather radar on,
Right.
it was deep red. It was deep red, and the deep red was coming across our area, thereby to take cover. Warning that we got. That's a first, and then you're following it. The radar saw cyclonic turning. So there was something developed in our area. Well, I mean, it's especially down here in the south. You just get massive thunderstorms sometimes, and sometimes luck can draw, but nowhere near as bad as where you live in the Midwest. We get them, but we don't get them very often. My
I remember when
uh, my sister-in-law has a house in Tennessee. Her house got it's a big house. I mean, they've got a little bit of money. Yeah, the house got tore up. They have a wraparound porch. The porch was basically ripped away from the house. They had a lot of damage, and this was 2 years ago. And it's taken them 2 years to rebuild the house. So you just don't know. It's fate.
back in the early 80s, I was in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and I was in a house with a friend of mine. We were working on something, and the tornado came through from one lake to another lake, and when it was a pretty heavy tornado. And here we are, we're sitting there, we're thinking we're going to go down the basement, and then we don't go down the basement. And I'm sitting watching out the porch window as the tornado goes through, and it's freaky because you see big old trees bending. You see things breaking. We got a couple windows broken. I mean, nobody in our area died, but It's a little freaky. I think people in Minnesota are a little more desensitized to tornadoes. I mean, it's like when we went down to Savannah last time. Last time we were down there in January, they were going, "Oh my God, it's gonna fucking snow. The world is coming to an end." So we get up the next morning, there's like 2 inches, and we're going, "Big fucking deal." We've
Yeah,
seen it. We see this is like Tuesday in Minnesota, and the whole town closed down. You couldn't go
yeah,
anywhere because we
yeah.
could drive in the snow. We had no problem with it, but everybody else did, and it was just a mess.
Well, where I live, it's a retirement area, so snow is a you don't go out not because you can't handle the snow, it's because everybody else can't handle it. A lot of retirees. I mean, you see these folks driving, they get out of their cars and they're bent over in half, and when they're driving, their heads barely they're looking through the steering wheel. And you don't want to be out where they are. I've been here one hurricane, two ice storms, only one that was really bad. And that's pretty much it. But before I moved here, I've been in five hurricanes, two earthquakes, and I tried to pick a place where that stuff didn't happen. And of course, I grew up in New Jersey and lived in Chicago a little bit and in Rhode Island. I said, I'm not going to do snow. I don't want to be where hurricanes are. Of course, we got the one last summer that came through and did a bunch of damage to Augusta, Georgia, went through past us and really destroyed North Carolina. So for the most, you can't escape completely, but you can mitigate your risks depending if you pick smartly. I like living where I live. Small
Oh,
small community. Yeah. Have you been up
it's
here?
beautiful
You've been
down there.
to?
Well, I've not been to Aiken, but I've been to Beaufort and um, where else have I been? Bluffton,
Oh yeah, they're all
Charleston.
pretty. Yeah, they're much more. They're much prettier, but they're too close to the water. So
Yeah, yeah, no question.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
not gonna do it. We get during the Masters is when Aiken becomes just populated with people as tourists come in for the Masters. It's a tiny little airport in Augusta. It's really small. And so they have to have some place to go. And Augusta is not the prettiest city in the world. So they come over to Aiken and hang out in the bars and stuff here.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love South Carolina. It's very nice, in spite of the fact that it's pretty red.
It's
South
very
Carolina
red.
is a beautiful state, a beautiful state. And since we're talking about that, we might as well talk about some of the shit that's going on over the past
Yeah.
week or so. Everybody's talking about it. Let me ask you this. Prior to the election, when we thought Kamala Harris was going to win, even had Donald Trump won, did you imagine the shit we'd have to be dealing with now? The shit that would be
Um,
happening? I mean, it's even beyond what I imagined in my worst dreams.
First of all, I heard your podcast, not your podcast, I heard your TikTok. No, I did not expect Kamala. I couldn't believe that Trump could win. But when Trump won, I expected it to be really bad, but not this quickly. I thought it would take him 6 months to ramp up to crazy, not 6 weeks. So it's been horrible. And you and I have talked, and I'm on Blue Sky, and they're just raging over there on Blue Sky. They're demoralized
Yeah.
because everything just keeps coming. I think he does this stuff on purpose because he knows if he owns the news cycle, he stays relevant. So if he's got nothing going, well, let's just put out another thing about invading Canada, and
Yeah.
that's what he does. He has no plan on invading Canada. As a military guy, though, you and I talk. My son's in the army; he's a medic. Um, I'm urging him to get out of the army and go to college. It's too crazy because I can actually foresee him invading Panama. Um, we've done it
Really?
once before. Yeah, I can. I it's a helpless country. It is not tied to NATO like Greenland would be. It is not Canada where there'd be no move. But I could see him and the MAGA people and the Republicans making some kind of like they did with TikTok. They'll say intelligence shows blah a hub of terrorism, a hub of the Chinese are in there in big numbers and they're taking over the canal. They would make up some kind of excuse like that, and I can see him sending troops in there. So yes, and so he's going to own the news cycle every single day because he and the MAGA people around him have figured out if they own the news cycle, they wear down us. First of all, everybody's exhausted. You can just tell we're
Yeah.
demoralized, and we'll talk some more about why we're demoralized. So it's bad. It's been worse. Like you said, it's been worse than I would have thought. But nothing. But I would have thought it would have been this bad, and it would have taken longer to get here.
Well, the thing about it is he's kind of, well, he's really dumb, and we know he's dumb. All he really had to do is come in terms of the economy and go the course. He would have looked like a genius because the economy, stock market and such was rising, and it probably would have continued to rise. But he can't help but get into something and fucking break shit. I mean, it's like he doesn't care about success as much as he is worried about getting press, good or bad.
Well, the economy. There's a lot of theories, but I kind of subscribe to the theory that they're breaking it on purpose. Like the people around him are leading him down this process because if they break the economy, then the only people that have money really are kind of like the tech pros, right? They're going to have billions of
Right.
dollars and they will be able to buy companies on the cheap. They'll be able to buy stock on the cheap. So there is some theory that a lot of very wealthy people want the economy to tank. Plus, if the economy tanks, what do you have? You have cheap labor out there. So we go back to that again. So you fire all the labor you've got right now, which is talented, smart, leaving the government, cheap labor. You break the economy, more cheap labor who'll be happy to have any kind of job and make any kind of money. They're not invested in the stock. So the stock market will be ripe for the pickings at lower prices. I, I'm not generally a conspiracy theory person, but I actually think there's a lot of validity to it. He's stupid. There's no doubt about it. But he's a tool of people around him and they'll say, you
Right.
know what, sir, you are truly right about tariffs. This will help make America great. You'll go down as the greatest president in the world. And I think that's what's happening. You kind of think that you agree. I'm sure you've thought about
Yeah, I don't think he's smart enough to come up with any strategy on his own. I've said that before. Donald Trump is a useful idiot, not only to Vladimir Putin, but oligarchs and people who are wealthy around him. I will say this, though. There's one wealthy person, maybe the most wealthy person, who's not having a good fucking week, and that
it.
would be Elon Musk. And what amazes me about Elon Musk, he is almost in tears about what's happening to Tesla. I don't think he ever imagined it. But if you're getting a bad result, wouldn't you change your style a little bit? He
I
still
think
keeps doing it. He keeps doubling down. That's how arrogant that motherfucker is.
I personally think he's autistic in a bad way. I don't think he can change his style. I posted a demonstration in front of a Tesla dealership today on Blue Sky, and nobody was going to drive into that dealership on that particular. There must have been 200-300 people in front of this dealership with signs and everything. The press is bad, so I think Tesla as a product is pretty much finished because there's
I do
not a
too.
lot of margin. First of all, the stock was artificially built up because he promised self-driving, he promised this, he promised that. So it really wasn't capitalized correctly as a car company. It was more capitalized as a tech company. So it was
Right.
overpriced to begin with. But it's done. That Tesla's done. So the next thing is there needs to be a competitor for Earthlink because Earthlink is making some money.
Starlink.
There are or Starlink. I'm sorry, Earthlink, Starlink, and the same thing with its batteries. So I've been in contact with General Motors, and General Motors is coming up with a battery technology to replace to sort of be a competitor to Tesla batteries for home use. Because I have solar panels here. What I don't
Right.
have is I don't have batteries, and his batteries have been pretty good. So we need competitors both in the satellite industry and we need competitors in the battery industry, and that'll wipe him. They'll be wiped out. As far as SpaceX, that's all government contracts, and as long as I guess Trump is in office, he will have government contracts. Well, God help him if other competitors come up. But right now, the only two competitors are him and Jeff Bezos. And so who do you pick? Both are bad when it comes to space.
The interesting thing about Tesla, which I'm looking forward to, is Tesla was his kind of his flagship.
It was.
And a lot of things he did, like buying Twitter, maybe partly SpaceX, he leveraged the stock in Twitter or
Tesla.
in Tesla. So when Tesla starts to bottom out, and like you say, I think Tesla's done. You can't come back from this. Even if he quit doing it, people just hate this guy. Part of the things with his company, one of the biggest part of his country is the brand, and the brand is fucking done. Everybody hates him worldwide. He won't be able to come back from that. Even if they kick him off the board and say, "Oh, Elon's not here anymore," nobody wants to fucking Teslas anymore. And
Couldn't
so,
give me one.
but he may end up losing Twitter too
Yeah,
if he
because
can't
he's
back it
cash
up.
poor. I'm sure you know he's
Yeah.
cash poor. Everything is leveraged. He's living. That's how rich people do it. They own a lot of stock and they leverage off that. They borrow money against their stock. And if their stock's not worthless, there's going to be a margin call by the banks to get paid back for what they leverage. And he's cash poor. So now, will he end up broke? Broke, which would be just no. I don't think so. I think he'll do what Trump did, and do some kind of bankruptcy. But the brand is done. I can't imagine anyone. And they say that the conservatives are starting to go out and buy Teslas.
You do that. You do that.
Can you imagine Bubba, with suspenders with pig shit on the bottom of his boots, going out? I won't give me a it's not going to happen. They
Well,
can't make that up.
well, the thing is, you know how they always say when you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot, it loses like 20% of its value. You drive a Tesla off the lot, it loses 150% of its value. And you get teased about driving the Teslas. Now, people are saying,
Uh,
well, I bought a Tesla before it was, um, you know, Elon was an
with
asshole.
the
And I feel bad. I got all this money into this car. Look, man, we all take we all take chances and we all take risk. And I'm sorry that people are getting beat up for owning a Tesla, but don't blame me. Blame fucking Elon, your hero for the longest time.
And one of my students at Aiken Saber Academy, she's 17. She has a Tesla. Her parents went out and got her a used Tesla. And I feel bad for her. But she's in Aiken, South Carolina. So no
Yeah,
one's gonna no one's gonna go ahead and damage your car. But you don't see Teslas around here anyway. But the brand, but I do feel sorry for people who are giving them up. There are people who can't sell, can't get rid of them. No one's going to buy it.
right.
For those that are in the audience that do have a Tesla, Carvana is taking Tesla trade-ins. So you may get a lesser car if you trade your Tesla in, but especially if you have an older Tesla, maybe you can get a small gas efficient car or a hybrid. I look at the prices of Teslas. They're still in the, even if you wanted to get a used one from, say, Carvana, they're still in the 30,000 range. They're not at 14. They haven't dropped that low, but I suspect
Right.
at some point they might.
Do you think going through this stuff, the possible bankruptcy and all this other stuff, it's obviously taken a toll on 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 Elon Musk. Do you think it takes him out of the situation too? Do you think he gets buried so
No,
hard that
no.
he will be off the table? I'm going to tell you a story I heard on TikTok, and I've told people this before. Just because you hear it on TikTok, or just because it's a story that you like or agree with, doesn't mean it's true. There was a story going around yesterday or the day before, and it was saying Marco Rubio's got some text
I,
messages, and it said that he walked in the Oval Office and Elon Musk was curled up crying on the floor, and Donald Trump was sitting flat on his ass consoling Elon Musk. Now, here's the deal: the idea that Elon Musk is curled up and crying, 100% that's possible.
I think so too.
The the idea that Donald Trump would get on the ground and show empathy to Elon Musk or anybody as a malignant narcissist, as a sociopath, that didn't happen.
No, because he
That
can't
didn't
his
happen.
because he can't fit his fat ass off the ground if he
Well,
goes down that
yeah,
far. He might hug him.
abs- I don't think he's show any kind of sensitivity to anybody, even Elon Musk. In my opinion, he would probably be disgusted by him being so weak because Donnie's a tough macho guy. But
Donnie's a weak man too. I heard the same story. I took a video from a TikToker because I'm sure there were multiple TikTokers who posted that story. Then I put it out on Blue Sky, and It got the laughs, you would think, and everybody's like us. We're all hoping it's true. We
Yeah.
hope that he's suffering and suffering miserably. Now, the question that you asked me was, do I think he's going to stop and leave? And I really don't think so. I think he's the kind of guy that will be even twice as vengeful. I think he it left up to his own devices. I think he'll be even more ruthless.
Well, let me say this though. It's maybe not all up to him because he's having problems with the cabinet. Republicans are pushing against him because they see how badly he's affecting. I mean, they're going to fucking town halls and getting shouted down no matter where they go. So it may not be Elon's choice to leave. At some point, somebody will get to Donald Trump and say, "This is really fucking you up. You better get rid of him." I mean, with Elon that weepy and all this stuff, and we know he's got some emotional issues because I've seen him on TV where his eyes are a little watery and he's a little down. There's going to come a point where that break is going to happen, and it won't be pretty because you got two egomaniacal motherfuckers going head to head. But I think ultimately he goes away, but not necessarily by his choice. This may be the only thing he thinks he has left when it's all said and done. Because while he's had 400, I told people this. I said he has $400 billion. Yes, that's true. But the way he has it, that can be gone like that, and
I
it's
think
starting to show that that might be possible.
I think Trump still wants to squeeze more funds out of him, um, as long as he can. But Trump likes the cabinet fighting with Musk. He wants
Oh,
to
I
sit
know.
there and watch that because that's how he's always done his business, right? Any employee of a Trump organization, you go in to see the boss, and he likes to pit them like gladiators against each other, and he gets to sit there with a thumbs up or thumbs down, right, kind of thing. So I think, but overall, I think you're right. Overall, I think Musk is going to go when he's of no more use. Right now, he's the lightning rod that spares Trump from getting hit with lightning. So why wouldn't Trump keep him around? His cabinet's not going to yell at Trump. The Republicans might, but from what I've seen, even the other day and this weekend, they're still cowed down. They don't say one bad thing about Trump. They may speak
Yeah.
amongst themselves, and they're not even going on record as far as I can tell, but not a one, not a single one is saying anything bad about Trump, not one. So for them to say anything is going to require Trump's approval rating to go down into the teens, is my guess. So that's really the key. Is he keeps Musk around to be the lightning rod and be his hatchet man. But if Trump's approval rating craters completely, that's when I think the cowardly GOP might find a spine, might, and it's a big maybe.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, Elon is a perfect scapegoat when everything goes to hell, too. And that's what
That's
Donald Trump will do. He does it every fucking time.
every time.
Um, Now, you talk about spines, and it's not just Republicans we have to worry about having a spine. Our Democratic Party is showing us to be a little spineless. The whole thing with
Oh
the
my God.
CR and what Chuck Schumer did. Now, I have a mutual on, and I don't really know how to take him all the time. His name is Richard Green. He claims to be a Democrat and all that stuff. And he was saying, Schumer did the right thing. He's my hero. And I go, yeah, I don't know. What do you think about what Schumer did? Some people think he did the right thing. Some people think he did the wrong thing. And I think he did the wrong thing, but not for the reasons. I'm not talking about how what ends up. I'm talking about the posturing and the position of the Democratic Party. We once again look weak.
Yeah, Schumer is the wrong man for the times. He did the wrong thing. His reasoning was that if we close the government, it gives Trump more power. That was his reasoning. The CR now gives Trump power, and he's still doing the same things he did before. So it did nothing.
Right.
So why not do the fight? If not then, why not? You might have got some concessions, but it wasn't the idea of even getting concessions. It was the idea of just fighting to build up morale and taking a stand. Had nothing to do with getting concessions that he wouldn't buy it anyway. It had everything to do with the political fact that he damaged the Democratic brand even more so. So before him was that group of Democrats who went to a place where Elon Musk Doge was, and a security guard stopped them,
Right.
and they looked weak. They looked weak.
Yeah.
Then came the State of the Union, and they're holding up their little placards and they're walking out one a few at a time. We looked weak. They destroyed our brand, and now this throwing the House of Representative Democrats under the bus. Schumer's got to go, but it's up to the. If he doesn't go, he's going to get primary. He's going to retire in 2028. I'm almost certain AOC is going to run against him, and he'll retire when he sees the polls. He will take his money and run. But before then, the Senate can change the minority leader, and that's exactly what they should do. You should find somebody with some grit. This is the lowest I've ever been. I'm almost at the point, almost, of just becoming an independent. That's how ashamed of my. I'm already ashamed of the country. I'm already pissed off at the GOP, but I'm now ashamed of the Democrats after this week. And I'm not the only one. There are millions and millions and millions in the blue tribe that we're going to lose a lot. They're just going to leave and they're going to become independents. And that's a shame. When we need to grow, we're going to shrink. And frankly, it's all because of Chuck Schumer. Wrong guy, wrong time. He needs to go. And unfortunately, there were 10 others and only one or two of them that I could see a political reason for doing it. I think what's her name from Arizona, she barely won in her own state. I can see her doing this and give her a pass. But for most of the others, there was no reason for them to go along with him.
Well, for 8 years, 10 years, we've been dealing with Donald Trump and the MAGA people. Um, and there's always an excuse not to fight back. Now with Chuck Schumer in this situation, does this cause a lot of problems for people being put out of work and closing down the government? Does Donald Trump have more power to do worse things? Here's my question. We're already in a fucking shutdown. We've already got departments shut down or cut in half or hobbled. And how much more shit can Donald Trump do than he's done already? I mean, if you don't stand up, I mean, you could have pushed back a little bit, put some pressure on them, and said, go 30-day, we'll go 30-day CR so we can come to some negotiation. I mean, the important thing is this CR was never, ever discussed with a Democrat. It was all contrived by Republicans, which is contrary to what fucking Congress is supposed to be. That in itself should cause them to push back, but he couldn't even fucking do that.
No, and what really aggravates me now is to see a few senators get on TikTok and say, listen, I didn't agree with this. I didn't vote for the CR or I voted for the CR, but we're all Democrats. We need to stand together. I don't want to hear that bullshit from you senators.
No,
You
no, I
have,
don't either.
and nobody outside of the Senate wants to hear it, not even in the House of Representatives. We want to know now what you senators are going to do to change the Senate. And the first thing you should do is get rid of Dick Durbin and Schumer. I mean, and replace them with somebody with some passion and some fire. But barring that, don't show up on TikTok and say we need to stand together, because you didn't stand together. You threw us and you threw the country under the bus for no reason that we can expect. And so I don't know. From what I can tell, Schumer's not getting any feedback from the public anyway, because all his phones are off. You can't email him. The only way you can get anything into him is either by a hard copy letter or by fax. So, is his staff going to protect him from the outrage that's out there? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But certainly Nancy Pelosi could see that outrage, and I'm sure she's had a talk with him about it. I don't know.
I
I'm
don't know
ashamed.
if I don't know if she's a whole lot better. She was fine when she was in office, but since then, keeping AOC out of a chairman or chairmanship or whatever, and putting in this older guy that's got cancer in place of her, that's just fucking ridiculous. That's counterproductive. We need this
Was
Congress to get younger, and we need the young people to stand up because they're the future. They're going to live through that future. Nancy Pelosi will be dead. Chuck Schumer will be dead. and all the shit that they've wrought on this country, they won't ever have to suffer through. And that's a frustrating thing. What Chuck Schumer did, there's a lot of Republicans, whether it's his constituents or not, there's a lot of Republicans, Senate Republicans, that are pissed. He's hearing about something. I want to say something else though, and I was surprised I'm going to say this. Along with Chuck Schumer, I have some issues with Hakeem Jeffries too.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
young, strong politician that I had a lot of hope for, but
yeah.
he has
That
done nothing to increase my hope. He seems to be pretty lame, pretty
he's
establishment, pretty well sucked in with Nancy Pelosi.
no, you're right. Listen, audience, you have two boomers. Both of us are saying we don't want any more boomers in Congress.
Right. I
You're
agree.
our voters. Don't If there's a boomer that's running for anything in Congress, don't vote for a boomer. It's just that simple. We're not flexible enough. We're not. We're old. We get sick. We are will tend to follow traditions and things like that. We don't need that. For the next 20 years, we need Congress to be rejuvenating itself with younger and younger members who are willing to put it all on the line. Not a style. I'm with you. Listen, I'm with you on Nancy Pelosi. She needs to go away too. She was a
She's older
really
than
good Speaker of the House, but she's older than
Yeah,
dirt.
she was. She's older than fucking Biden, for Christ's sake. It's just absolutely. I just want to say to the folks, all my time here on TikTok, I have to fight against the stereotype of boomers, and the stereotype of being Trump humpers and MAGA and all that stuff. As somebody sees me coming down the street, they go, "I know who that fucker is," until they hear me talk. I've said this: boomers, some of them suck. There's no question about it. And I can say that as a boomer, and nobody's going to give me any shade. I will just say this. We got Tony and myself here on this show, both boomers. The big difference, we're cool motherfuckers. That's what the fucking deal is. We still have our minds and our wits about us, and we
We
still
do.
know what's right and what's best, and we care about our kids and our grandkids. It's not all about us. We got ours. We're fine now.
Right. That's
Now we
right.
got to get for our kids and our grandkids. I think what Chuck Schumer did was probably more damaging to the Democratic Party than it was to the country, and that's a lot to say.
Um, yeah, the country was going to be damaged. It's just the way it is. Our government is being damaged and systematically torn apart, with or without the CR. That was going to happen, and the courts
Right.
seem powerless to stop them. We can talk about the courts in a little bit. They're not going to obey the courts. It's already was an event today where a court ordered some migrants to be brought back that were on their way to, I think, Guatemala or something like that, or Colombia. And they said, well, they're over the Atlantic. We don't need to listen to this. So it's already starting to happen. But that's not the point. The point is the fight. The point is the entire party is considered a sissified, women-controlled bunch. And this is the independents that we need to join with us that really
Right.
don't want anything to do with us. And we start by putting people with fire in charge and getting rid of the old fogies. And listen, I'm 70, you're 64, I think, or
Be
65.
65 next month.
Yeah, I mean, so we love boomers. It's our generation. We
Yeah,
did some cool things
I
back
won't say
in the
love
day.
them. They're
Well,
okay. They're cool.
uh,
Some.
yeah, some. But it's time. Sometimes you gotta pass the torch, at least to Gen X. Pass the torch, and I just don't. Schumer really killed the morale of this party single handedly by himself by doing what he did,
And
and
it
he's got to
wasn't good in the
go.
first place. It wasn't good in the first place. It
No, and
already
Hakeem,
appeared weak.
he already appeared. He's been terrible for a long time. He was a terrible minority leader. He wasn't the right man for that job. And it's the same thing with Hakeem Jeffries. As much as I want to like the guy, I think though he could learn on the job because he pulled together everybody except one representative to vote against it. So to do that, he had to have done something right to whip them into place. There were a lot of people in red states that happened to win, last election that they put their jobs on the line for him and us. And so, he did a good job of keeping the troops but then get backstabbed by the Senate.
Well, and the thing about it is people, I say you got to stand up, you got to fight back, you got to get in their face. And people say, what good would that do? They still will do whatever they want to do. I explain to people, think about the Republicans, think about Donald Trump. How did they win that election? Because they were loud, they were in your face, and they overtalked the Democrats. So
That's right.
why not take that same tactic and use it back on them? I mean, I do it when I talk to Trump-a-fucks. Trump-a-fucks are always confused when they talk to me because I don't act like a Democrat. When they start talking louder, I can talk louder and I keep talking over them. And they don't know what to do with that. It's as simple as that. You see a journalist interviewing somebody like Mehdi Hassan interviewing a Republican, he pushes him in the corner and he nails him. You watch CNN or MSNBC, they say, well, what do you think? Do you do you believe Donald Trump lost in 2020? And then they just sit back and let those fuckers rant. No, you need to get in their face and say, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. Please explain to me the evidence. But nobody holds people's feet to the fire anymore. And that's what Democrats need to do if they expect to beat these guys. We're in a different world now. This isn't 90s politics. This is a fucking street fight. You better get your pant legs pulled up and ready to street fight because that's what it's going to take to beat these fuckers.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I was telling my wife, I grew up in the projects in New Jersey. By the time I was 12, I'd been in a number of fights, including a couple knife fights, at
Yeah.
12 years old. So, toughness comes with being from where I grew up. I'm not seeing any of that. But the part that really infuriates me, we're seeing Democrats go to town halls and organize. And if Schumer takes the wind out of their sails, we won't get that. If you're ashamed of being a Democrat because of Schumer's um, cowardice, for example, or all the weakness we've seen over the last 2 months, then you're not going to go to a town hall. You're not going to go to a meeting. You're not going to go and protest in front of a Tesla dealership. That's what Schumer has wrought with his spinelessness, and it's a shame because right now is the time. If they were fighting, the troops would be fighting hard too. And right now, the pulse I'm getting is everybody is been knocked back on their back foot.
Well,
And they'll get
you brought
they'll get. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, no, you brought up the town halls and how the Republicans are scared to death to go, and there are some Democrats out there holding town halls in Republican areas, and I think that's the right thing to do. It's about time you be a little fucking proactive. Go after them. These people, these Republicans that are upset, they have a problem. They want to talk to somebody about their problem and how to fix their problem. If the Republicans don't do it, then the Democrats should. We're seeing Bernie Sanders. Fucker's 150 years old, and he can get out of his fucking chair and do it, but nobody else younger can do it. AOC is doing it to a certain extent.
Tim
The one
Walz.
that that's the one that intrigues me. Think
Yeah,
about that.
Tim
And I
Walz is
brought
out
this
there.
up, when Tim Walz was the VP, I heard somebody say, I wish he was the presidential candidate. At that time, I thought, yeah, he's probably not the right kind of guy to do it. But I get the sense that he's kind of setting himself up to maybe run because his term is up on in 26, I think, as governor. Now he could run for governor again, and he might very well do that. But Tina Smith is not running for reelection in Senate. That would seem like a natural thing for Tim to run for, a step up, and he would probably win. But he's not running for the Senate. I go, that's weird. What's going on? And then Ed reminded me, you know what? Governors have a better time winning the presidency than senators do because they're the CEO of their state and you talk
That's
about
right.
what they did with the state. But the interesting thing is Tim is out there and he's talking, and I'm looking at him a little different about presidential candidate because the fact that he doesn't look like a typical presidential candidate may be exactly what they need because Democrats have proven that they don't like establishment politicians, and he doesn't come off that way. He's likable, he's smart, He's articulate. He's funny. He may be setting himself up to run for president, and I wouldn't be opposed to that.
No, he's a perfect candidate for president. I thought, Kamala was handpicked, and I thought she was perfectly fine. I
I do
would,
too.
I really thought Tim Walz was better, but he didn't run. She ran, so she should have got her shot at it. And I thought she ran a good campaign. Um, but Tim Walz is setting himself up, and Pritzker will be setting himself up, and what's
Pritzker
his
too,
name?
yeah.
What's his name from Newsom from California? Newsom is too polished in a way, and
He's
maybe
too establishment, and he's
he's
fucking
too.
himself up by doing these podcasts with Charlie Kirk.
He's
It's
just
going badly for him there. I think
yeah. He
he's
won't
out.
get through the primary. Yeah, he won't get through the primary. If he wants to run as an independent, maybe. But Tim Walz, if I had to pick somebody this early, listen, you made a comment on TikTok, and you said, "Look, she lost for a number of reasons, but we have to throw racism and misogyny in there. The next
Yeah.
election, we have to win. And if we have to pick an old white guy and we win, fine. That's what we do. It is not about anything but winning and losing. And you're right. At this point, we can't afford to have 4 more years of what we're seeing now from whoever follows Donald Trump if he lives to be that old. I'm hoping he dies tomorrow on a Big Mac.
Yeah.
So we have to win. Tim Walz is exactly the kind of candidate I think, and he's already got a reputation from running last time. I think he's way ahead of every single person. The only person that could catch him if she wanted to run, and I don't think she will, is AOC, and I think AOC will be in the Senate. I think AOC would do poorly on the national stage, to be honest. She's too young.
Yeah.
She's too pretty. She hasn't been in the Senate. I don't
Too
think people will
left.
go for her.
She's too
Yeah, too
left.
way too left. Tim Walz would be my early favorite if he can stay healthy.
Well,
So,
the thing about it is when I put that out, I said, this is what I see. This is what I'm kind of feeling. I could be wrong. I could be right, but they've got to start looking for somebody to get behind pretty soon because you can't wait for 6 months before the election. You got to have primaries. And I had people coming to me saying, well, if they don't put up Kamala, I'm not voting. Or if they don't put up
oh,
AOC, I'm not voting. I said, you know what? That attitude is exactly why we are where we are now. I
that's
want
right.
what I want the way I want it. Otherwise, I'm going to fucking pout. You put us here because of that attitude. At this point, we've got to focus on one thing, winning. And that is winning. And whatever it takes to win, then we do it. I'm not saying it's Tim Walz. I'm just saying it looks like he's looking to run. JB Pritzker would be a good choice too. And I said you can talk about AOC and Kamala, but they are women of color. And what this country revealed to us is there's a lot more racism than we knew, and a lot more misogyny or sexism too. So that's terrible. I don't agree with it. I would have loved to have Kamala Harris as president. I would have thought she would have been a great president, but we got to win. And whatever it takes to win, we win. And once we win, we can settle things down and start looking at candidates that we want. Not to say you wouldn't want Tim Walz, because I think Tim Walz has been a governor, he's been a congressman, um, and a vice presidential candidate, and he's not a lefty. He's kind of more left of center, really, if you
Yeah,
look at his
that's
track
right.
record.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's in Minnesota. That's your state,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
right.
and your state. Who controls your House and your and Senate there? Isn't it?
Well,
Isn't
that's
it the?
questionable. So we've had the Republicans for a time, and now it's gotten really close. And we had a big mess going on with the legislature and suing and trying to take control with the Republicans doing it. But yeah, he has been able to. He's done what he in Minnesota did what Joe Biden did with the United States. He was able to get things through with a very thin margin and do a lot of he's done a lot of shit in this state. Codified Roe v. Wade, got marijuana legalized, kids get lunches. We've got we've got child child rebates. He's done a lot of shit here in spite of the Republicans. I'm not saying I'm all on board with Tim Walz being the presidential candidate because I don't know, and it's still too early to tell what will happen. But we got to find some people, not just one, maybe three or four or five that we can get behind. Let them go through the primaries, to go through the process. But we got to start thinking about what we're going to do now and not wait till the last minute like we did last time.
My biggest fear is the Democratic machine um, puts puts its thumb on the scales to, for let's say Kamala Harris, that they want a minority person to go in and be the person. That's kind of my biggest fear. It'll reveal itself soon. So like Obama and others go, well, the country after Trump will be ready for, I don't know, another black woman or even Kamala again. I just don't think so. I don't think that's the right attitude. I think you primary the shit, keep your fucking selves out of the business of the primaries, and whoever wins wins. And I think what's going to come out of this is probably going to be, if I had to guess right now, I think it's going to be Waltz. I think Waltz is that good. I think, although he didn't do that well in the debate, that's the only thing that I see a problem with.
Well, let me explain to you the problem with the debate. The whole problem with that campaign, Kamala Harris couldn't be Kamala Harris because she had to stick within the boundaries that Joe Biden was willing to give. She couldn't speak against anything Joe Biden said. And at the same time, Tim Walz was kind of hamstrung
Yeah,
too by the
yeah,
Kamala Harris campaign. You
yeah,
let Tim Walz be in control, you might find a different situation.
yeah. I am going to not bash President Biden, which I normally do, and just say that's done with, and hopefully he's having a good retirement. Um,
Absolutely.
yes, yes. So I totally agree that they were stuck in the confines, but that doesn't mean that they would still win an election against a really sharp Republican. Might be a MAGA guy, might not be. So I don't know. I'm just, it's a worrisome time, and to be honest, I'm more focused on the upcoming elections in 26. That'll give us a real indication of where the country is the midterms. We've got special elections in April and two in Florida. I don't know when the one in New York is. That'll give us an indication of how things are. If we won the two in Florida, then that just tells me that the population is enraged because there's no way we should win both of them in Florida. The
No,
one in New York, we have a really good chance of winning, as it is New York after all. But Florida will be the bellwether about how things will go, possibly in the midterms. So it's a little early for me for looking at 2028.
it's too early. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I think he's positioning himself really well. I think Newsom is out there trying really well. I'm trying to think of the governor of Michigan, the female governor of Michigan.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Gretchen.
yeah, Gretchen. I If I had to pick a woman, I would say she has a better shot than Kamala Harris, to be honest with you. And I hate to say it because she's white, and that is a sad state that we Democrats. But I would rather win. I mean, at this point, I would rather win. We can't leave the mess. But the problem is, whoever gets elected is once again the cycle starts with a huge mess, that a really big mess that they got to try to clean up. And then 4 years later, we get to 2032, and who knows what's going to happen then. But it's just
We
a
won't
little
give a
early.
shit.
No, I mean, let's see, 32. How many years is that from now? Right? 5, 7. I'll be 77 then. I don't know. My family, everybody lives to 90, so I still might be doing this podcast. I don't know who'll be on your side, but but they'll hopefully maybe you'll leave it to somebody, and I'll be the other old boomer because my family lives pretty long, and so far I'm pretty fairly healthy. Um,
You
these are rough times. Go ahead.
talked about Democrats putting a thumb on the scale and picking the wrong person. We've
Yeah,
already seen them do that. They did that with Hillary. It's Hillary's turn, so she's running no matter what. Had they
they
run
did.
Bernie that particular time, Bernie probably would have beat him.
They did. They did, and frankly, I think they did it with Kamala too. I mean, Joe
Yeah,
was
they
the
kind
one
of did.
responsible, but Joe by himself wouldn't have been able to do it. They went along with it, and really, that was okay because why not? Why not Kamala? I mean, she proved herself to be immensely likable, and I am devastated to this day that she didn't win because I think she would have made a fantastic president. She's
I do
no
too.
nonsense. She's smart and brilliant, but the country appears to be not ready to make a change. And I don't understand that. Obama seems to be an aberration.
Well,
So
and that seems to be so disappointing. I think,
it is.
Obama had the good fortune to be coming off an absolute failure of a president in George W. Bush, and the
He did.
economy was horrible. So they weren't going to vote for any Republican, I think, at that point. They just wanted something different. So that helped Obama in that particular situation. But Obama proved to do a great job, and
He did.
there's some things I loved about him, some things I think
Yeah.
he was a little weak on, but essentially it was a good era in this country. There was
It
decency.
was. It was. You're right. It was. He was a solid president. I'm not going to put him up with the Washingtons and the Roosevelt and those, but he was a good, solid, strong president. Is he set an example. He tried to be the president to everybody. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of who the governor is in Maryland. So
Wes Moore, he's good too.
yeah, yeah. If I had to pick a minority to for 2028, I actually would kind of lean towards him. Um, I don't think any senator is going to get in. I mean, there's not
No.
a senator that I'm impressed with. They're talking about Buttigieg again. I don't know what it is, but I'm not feeling him. And I love him, but I'm not feeling him as a presidential candidate.
The question about Kamala is, was the problem racism or was it sexism? And I tend to think it's more the sexism or the misogyny than it is the race. Honestly, I do. They're both a problem for a lot of people, apparently. 49% of the people voted against her. Um, but like I said, we have to win. I mean, it's not even, well, if we don't win, we'll get them next time. We got to
No,
win.
we
We
got to
got to
win.
win in
We
26.
got
We
to
got to
win.
win in 2028. We gotta. Otherwise, there's no hope.
We have to watch the movement because he controls so many levers of power right now in the military, in the Justice Department, and all throughout the government. They're getting rid of anybody that might be an obstacle and replace them
Right.
with political appointees. It's a little too early to be scared of a coup where he controls, does not have elections. Um, but, it's something that hopefully people smarter than me and more in touch are watching because it would take a massive undertaking to stop that. In Hungary, I think today or yesterday, there was a massive demonstration, hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets against Orban. And uh, if we have to do that, then the country might be lost at that point. Demonstrations are all well and good. I don't know that they completely move the needle, but if if we have to put out hundreds of thousands of people because he's decided to take over the White House and he's not planning on leaving. And so I've never really wanted somebody to just pass away, but I'm really hoping he does because I think that might be the end of his movement. I don't think there's anybody else. He's a unique individual in the history of the country to do what he's done. But I really think he is not replaceable in the MAGA movement. I just don't think that. There's nobody else like him. And so get rid of him. I think the MAGA movement goes the way of other movements that have started from Ross Perot on up and eventually just sort of just dies a slow death.
The Tea Party and that sort of thing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think anybody. If something happens to him and JD Vance is the president for whatever period of time, it's not the same. It's not as strong. People don't like JD Vance. A lot of Republicans don't like JD Vance. So I'm not as concerned about him becoming president as I would be with Donald Trump continuing. You brought something up I wanted to talk about because a lot of people have asked questions about it. Donald Trump, we know, sent 200 immigrants to Venezuela in a plane. Federal judge said, "Nah, you can't do that. If the planes are in the air, you got to turn them around and come back." He did not do that. He violated that decision, that order. And this is something that we've been talking about, and something that the Republicans have said, well, we don't have to comply with these sorts of things. And that's in a normal world, that's not true. But by him doing this, what are your thoughts about that? And I think it kind of weakens him a little bit ultimately. I mean, it's still a mess, but I don't think this was the right move by Donald Trump by
Um,
ignore because you've got judicial systems, you've got the Supreme Court going, wait a minute, you're going to take away our power? They aren't going to stand for that shit, and things could change a little bit.
Anything that hastens a conflict between the Supreme Court and actually results in a constitutional crisis, we're better off for it. We need to know the answer sooner than later.
Yeah.
So their excuse, and this is what they always do, is they have a reason why they did it. The plane was over international waters, therefore that order is not in effect. They always have something like that,
Always
but
some loophole, some bullshit.
something like that. And I think the Supreme Court might not will buy that loophole once, maybe twice, depending on. But at some point, there's going to be a constitutional crisis. Then what? Is it the marshals against the Secret Service? He controls the marshals. They're in the Department of Justice. He controls the Secret Service. They're in the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi is on the outside looking in. She's just a fixture. She's really got no power.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he said in his speech in front of the DOJ that meaning Donald Trump,
That's right.
is the top law enforcement official, which is not true. And if I'm Pam Bondi, I'm going, wait, what the fuck? You gave me this job. That's my job. But Donald Trump made it clear that he controls the DOJ. And you're right. Um, if somebody doesn't follow a court order, usually the federal marshals are sent out or deputy marshals are sent out to deal with that. Um, and you're absolutely right, Pam Bondi, the DOJ, and Donald Trump have control to say, yeah, no, don't do that. That's true. However, I heard something, and I don't know what they mean by this, but judges can also send out a third party, a third party that's not the federal sheriffs or officials. There's a third party. Now, I don't know who that third party would be, but it'd be interesting to see if they do it because I got to believe the judges aren't going to tolerate constantly being defied. There's got to be some way of stopping it. Now, the last thing I will say too is that people will say, well, even if they do arrest him, Donald Trump will pardon them. He can't because these are civil offenses, and he can't pardon a civil offense. Now, they may not be able to get Donald Trump, but all the people tied around, they can tie those motherfuckers up for a long time. So it's going to be interesting. What are your thoughts on about?
I don't know who else could go and arrest, say, the vice president or the FBI director or anyone like that. I also am not holding out hope that the conservatives on the Supreme Court will not be spineless. He may have two conservatives on his side already.
Yeah,
So now you're talking about what about another three or four? I think they're spineless. The Gorsuches and the Kavanaughs and the rest. I actually think the women will have more balls, and that includes Amy Comey Barrett. I think they
yeah,
will stand up, but they're outnumbered by the spineless men. If the Senate, Republican Senate, is as spineless as it looks, if every politician throughout the country that's in GOP is spineless, why wouldn't the Supreme Court stay away from that and be spineless too?
When I'm talking about holding them accountable, I'm not talking about the vice president or Kash Patel. I'm talking about the attorneys that are flat out lying to judges, the people that are facilitating this movement. You know, the whether it be pilots, whether it be whatever. You're not going to
Uh,
get the cabinet, but you're going to be able to fuck with it and disrupt what's going on when the lower people start getting held accountable.
I just don't think the judges would know, go down and arrest the ICE agent that put these people on the plane. I don't think that's going to happen because the ICE agent got his marching orders from somebody higher up. So now you go down to the deputy director of ICE. I just don't. I don't see. I just don't. I don't know. I just don't. I want that to happen, and the sooner the better. But I just don't see it happening. I listen. Anything that is on the MAGA side or on the red side of things, I don't hold out a lot of hope that they, number one, they're going to show a spine, and number two, that they'll be able to accomplish anything. The brazenness has gotten past that. That's how a country gets taken over. You get to the point where there's nobody willing to stop you, and we're getting closer and closer to that point. And that's why we need to have this constitutional crisis now to put people out on the street by the hundreds of thousands. You know, if it happens now, then there's a reason for people to be concerned and to show up in mass and demand change.
So, what you're saying, something I've been saying for a while now, is that Congress, the judicial system, law enforcement, no fucking teeth at all. They can't do anything. They won't do anything. Now, I don't know if that's totally true, but that's how it appears right now. And what you're suggesting is something a lot of people are suggesting. The last line of defense is us, the people. Now, there are all kinds of protests going on currently, and a lot of Tesla dealer protests too. The interesting thing is you don't see it heavily reported. That's why I think it's important when you or somebody like me talks about or shows video for whatever the mainstream media isn't showing these protests. We had a
That's
lot
right.
of protests during the on Friday with the veterans. You didn't
Didn't
see
was it
much played on it,
that was nowhere. I
and
posted on Blue Sky some video from the veterans. I mean, they had quite a few veterans. None of the corporate media. Listen, I don't follow corporate media anymore. I'm done with it.
no, neither do I.
I can't. I can't watch it. I can watch a TV show, but if it's news, I won't. I won't bother. So that's all done on purpose, you know, because the oligarchs own the media, and the oligarchs are bowing down currently to this moron in office. So I don't. This is bad, but I think there's enough media to get the word out because these protests are going on. Somebody's organizing them, and folks are going out. They're going around mainstream, and they're organizing through other media, TikTok, I don't know, whatever else they got. But I'm kind of worried because I want to see what happens with the if the Supreme Court gets a case and has to decide and gets ignored.
Yeah.
And like I said, the sooner that that happens, the better off this country will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and they may be at that point now when they just didn't listen to this federal funding thing. And I don't know that the money's flowing yet. So they may have already kind of ignored the Supreme Court. They didn't really take it up. So they left it to the lower court. So right now, I guess technically he's ignoring the lower court. Um, I'm curious, the whole veterans thing, there's a lot of, there's a lot of, I think, lines where people start to get enraged. And, you know, we've talked about Social Security and Medicare. And if you'd fuck with that, the whole world, the whole country's going to come apart. I don't care what anybody says. You're going to have old people, you're going to have young people, you're going to have disabled people, and they are going to be absolutely outraged. But I see the veteran thing as kind of a pivot point too. And since you're a former veteran, what's your feeling about what's
Well,
going on now with the veterans?
the, the only big outside of the Democrats, the only big organized group that I see taking a stand are the veterans groups. I don't see AARP. Where are they? Social
Yeah,
Security is under direct threat. I mean, they represent everybody on Social Security. Where are they? I don't hear them. I don't see them. I don't see any organization. But we do see the veterans showing up at town halls, pissed off beyond belief, and they should be.
Yeah.
They absolutely, a lot of them work for the VA and lost their jobs. A lot of them depend on the VA for health care, and they're not going to get that health care. As clinics close, we got a clinic here in Aiken. I expect that to close at some point because they're not going to be able to man it because they'll say there's a hospital in Augusta, 35 minutes away. So the veterans, so once the veterans groups, the American Legion, the VFW, and the rest of them, they actually have the ear of Congress. So it's possible that they will get to their local red congressman and say, if you ever want to march on another Veterans Day, be it Memorial Day or Veterans Day, you better do something about this. Because the Republicans, they've always been the party, well, they always claim to be the party of veterans. And if they lose the veterans, that's politically, that's a big deal. And right now, in media that you and I watch, they seem to be. But if corporate media doesn't cover it, it's like hearing a tree fall in the woods. Can you hear it? And I don't know.
Well, I think we're in a position right now. We've seen the mass exodus from people watching corporate media, and we're seeing social media pick things up, whether it be TikTok or what have you, Blue Sky or Substack or even Facebook to a certain extent. I think that they may be walking into their own demise because when this starts with all these protests and stuff coming out and assuming this goes the way I think it will with Donald Trump, because he can't continue doing this forever, this will crash ultimately. And when it does crash and all this has come out on social media and people already hate mainstream media, they may end up like fucking Tesla. Nobody wants to watch them anymore. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Well, the Fox News will probably do okay because you got dumb fucks that'll watch them no matter what. They could run Daffy Duck cartoons and they think it's fucking Jesus. But I think the mainstream media is really putting themselves in a situation where they could kill themselves.
I think from the news level, yeah, but if MSNBC and CNN go away, they're not effective now, but I actually think that's bad because then what do you got left? Fox, right? Because Fox is not going away. We need another giant lawsuit against Fox for some reason to put a dent in them financially. But I haven't watched MSNBC since Joe and Mika went down to Florida.
Right.
But I heard that their ratings have gone up slightly. I don't know how much. And then so I don't know if their ratings have gone up enough, but any of the media owned by corporations is, as far as I'm concerned, is bad media. And so I don't know. If they went away tomorrow, would it bother me? No, but there's a lot of people that still depend on them for
Well,
something.
but the thing about it is though is we're coming into a big cultural change. If you have, well, you have kids, you know this. Um, the people that watch MSNBC and CNN, they're older people pretty much.
Yeah.
People who still look to TV for information. If you look at your kids or my kids, they don't watch fucking TV.
No, no,
They
no, no,
stream
no,
shit. They go to
no.
social media. So what we know for sure is in 2028, the majority of the voters are going to be millennials and Gen Z, not boomers or
And
Gen X.
right, and Gen X. Gen X on down.
So the young people are taking over in 2028, whether the Republicans, whether the mainstream media likes, and there's going to be a cultural change. TV will be like radio. It's nice to have, but I got I got a million songs on my fucking phone I'll just listen to. The culture's changing dramatically, and I think the media and of course the Republicans know this, and these are the last gasps of trying to stay alive. But they're old timey right now, both the
They are old
Republican
timey.
Party
Yeah, yeah.
compared to who's coming up.
But the issue is okay. So we now go to 2028, and now it's, let's say, compared to us, young people are out there. We didn't do
Yeah.
too well in the last election. So, and I don't know if it's because we didn't have a handle on podcasts. So Joe Rogan is big. Midas Touch is a little bit bigger than they are now. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of other podcasts. I listen, Pod Save America, Bulwark.
Yeah.
Bulwark is mostly ex-Republicans, Lincoln Project, because there's a viewpoint there from these people that used to be and are now no Trumpers. There is a viewpoint. They are still connected. Tim on Bulwark has met, and he goes to like CPAC and some of these things. So there's a viewpoint. It's important to get that viewpoint. But they're worried about the young people starting to move away because of the apparent weakness of the Democrats in media. So we're talking about media right now. And that's why it's important that we project some strength, and we're not projecting strength because the young, particularly young men, are not responding to what the Democrats are putting out there. And so I don't know. It's I don't any politician that's going to run, and that includes Tim Walz. He needs to be hitting soon if he's going to run. He needs to be a fixture on podcasts all over, and it needs to be both red and blue podcasts.
Well, and I think that strength is an important part for the Democrats, but I think what really costs the Democrats young people is they're just out of fucking touch. They'll tell you that the stock market is great, and I was out of touch too until I was schooled by my son and some other younger folks. Stock market looks good, unemployment is down, GDP is up. That's great, but here's the problem: we've got younger kids coming out of college, saddled with huge debt. They get jobs that don't pay them enough money, and they can't rent apartments or houses or buy cars or whatever. And they feel like the Democratic Party isn't addressing their issues. That's why we need younger people to talk about those things that are going to help those younger people. That's our target audience now. We got to tell them how you're going to be helped with this ridiculous debt, be helped with making more money instead of being stuck at $7 an hour as a minimum wage, and how you're going to make things more affordable. Now, Kamala Harris did that to a certain extent, but she was kind of pulled back by the Democrats. The Democrats are out of fucking touch. Even over and above being tough, they've got to. One of the things we'll have advantage in 2028, we won't be out there saying, you vote for us because Donald Trump sucks. That didn't work. We got to have them focusing on how I'm going to help you be in the podcast, be in the narrative. And the Democrats are too old and stodgy to do that now in their current situation.
Well, yeah, I will say, let me add one more thing. We had a pretty good economy going. So it
Yeah.
was a question of making adjustments and fixing it. There is a lack of critical thinking among the young. So they ended up believing lies. And it's hard to beat lies. And the same thing is going to happen. Is going to happen in the next few elections. It's going to be nothing but lies. We've gotten past the point where a politician can be can be, I don't know, ostracized for lying, blatant lies. Trump is the master of the lies, but now it's everybody else. They're lying, and it's going to be tough. So even if we can say we're going to help you with the economy, they will say, I promise you, I will get you a $30 an hour job as soon as you finish college. So one says we got this program to help you. The other is talking directly to them, meeting them in the eye, and telling them they're going to help them. I don't know how you fix that, because I would hate to see Democratic politicians who want to win now have to lie and do counter lies against Republicans who are going to lie.
Well, I
I
think
don't know.
one advantage Democrats will have going forward, they have some drawbacks certainly, but one of the advantages they will have is a 4-year period under the Republican Party that has just gone to shit and hurt these people. That's what happened when George W. Bush uh, ended. Nobody wanted to fucking look at a Republican because of how bad he left it. And assuming things continue to go as badly as they are, and I don't know how they could do anything else, I think that will be helpful to the Democrats. But the Democrats have to be able to hit the ground running, not just say uh, that Republicans are bad and we're not as bad, so you should vote for us. That's what I'm saying. You're dealing with younger people. You've got to show them and tell them exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you've got to be loud and you got to be a little pugnacious with the Republicans and push back. When they tell a lie, you said, yeah, but you said this. You, we got to be in the mix. We got to be in the fight more
No,
and we
no, no,
got to be
no.
talking
Absolutely.
loud.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we can, you listen, we can do that. We talked about messaging. We can't come up with just programs. We have got to look them in the eyes and talk to them. And it can't be about just, well, I got this program that we're going to put, $2 billion into that'll lower the cost of houses for this, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work. Elections now are won on feelings. The people who voted for Trump felt that he would do a better job than Kamala Harris.
Absolutely.
It wasn't based on critical thinking. Critical thinking was you and me. We knew
Yeah.
this guy was going to be fucked up. Most Democrats knew that. How could you possibly win? It's because we didn't understand, and I still think a lot of us don't understand. And I'm talking about politicians that elections are won on feelings. Yes, the economy was good, but most people felt it was bad because of prices at the supermarket because there was no critical thinking that those things could be adjusted, that a Kamala Harris administration would have gone after the producers and the manufacturers and said, you guys are ripping off the public, got massive profits, and you're charging too much. That would have lowered the prices. Trump is not going to do that. So they've got to address this feelings thing and talk to feelings. And I think Walsh seems to be really good at that. I don't think Kamala Harris was as good at it as Tim Walz. But the fact is, you've got the other side is going to do knows feelings really well. They know how to make a really short jingle, and a short message. The Republican, whatever you can say about the Republicans, that whatever they're going to say, it's going to be pithy and it's going to be short and it's going to be feelings based, whether it gets you mad or whether it gets you to be racist or misogynist. Their messages are short and to the punch, and they know how to get feelings. The Democrats have got to learn to do the same thing.
You know, over the years, people would always say, this is a presidential election. It's not a popularity contest. Fuck, it ain't. It's absolutely. And that's why I was talking about Tim Walz. You not only have to have a good politician in this world the way it is now, based on people voting for feelings, you need a good personality. You need a good front man or front woman to win this thing. That's all Donald Trump is. He has no substance. He doesn't know anything, but he's the front man for whatever these fuckers want to believe. And we need somebody that has a strong, well, I won't say a stronger personality, but a strong personality to win the next elections. That's where I see Tim Walz. Even J.B. Pritzker, to a certain extent, he's not quite as pithy as Tim Walz. But if I was to pick somebody out to actually beat the Republicans at their own game, Tim Walz would be the best choice because of his personality. How he can go spin a yarn, make people laugh, say clever things like they're weird. Stupid little
Yeah.
things like that take off.
And,
And he
and
has the
Buttigieg
ability to
does the
do
same
that.
thing. And
Yeah.
Buttigieg does the same thing. He's very good.
He's brilliant. He would be a great president, but he's gay.
But he's
And I
gay.
don't have a problem with that, but apparently
Yeah.
this country does.
And so he's going to win the women's vote. He's going to win the gay vote. He's going to win, but will he win the black vote? Will he win with,
The old white man vote.
or the incel young men that voted for Trump? Will he win those guys? My son is in the army. A lot of the troops around him, the enlisted guys, there's no critical thinking there. They're not that smart,
No.
but they're going to vote Republican because they sense there's a strength there. And so Buttigieg coming up, as good as he is, I don't think he can win. I mean, I just, God help us, but I don't think he can win. And that's a shame because it says a lot about us as a country.
Well, yeah, I've been very disappointed by us after the November 5th election about the racism, the misogyny, uh, the homophobia, the issue with transgender.
Oh my
It's
God.
uh, I said this all along, and people say, there was a period of time when, 60s, 70s racism was just accepted. I don't care what anybody says. It was
Yeah,
accepted.
sure.
And then we got in the 90s and the 2000s, and people say, I think it got better. Well, yeah, an old white guy would say it did get better, but people of color aren't going to say that. It's always been bad. The only thing is that Donald Trump stirred the shit up. It was cool to be racist again, and we're just as racist as we are now as we were in the 60s. I
Yeah,
believe
that's
that.
about right. We're not back to the 40s and the 30s, but we are back
No,
to the 60s. Yeah, there's no
yeah,
doubt about it. I mean, if you're black, you can still get a hotel room. It's not Sammy Davis Jr. needing some intervention from Frank Sinatra to, get him into
yeah.
a hotel room where they're playing, right? But we've gone back. We've gone back. I mean, you saw that over at they removed not the veterans, but the National Cemetery has removed a whole bunch of African American and women's stories on their website. People who deserve to be up there. Uh, we're talking about the military, which is supposed to be a vanguard for truth, justice, and equality. And they are removing the stories of people that are legitimately heroes. It's just a short step away from saying, "Well, you're black, you can't be buried here." I
Right.
mean, we're at that. We're close to that right now. You're seeing them go to law firms saying you represent DEI. You're not going to do any business with the government, and they're doing this across the board. You are historical black college. You have too much DEI in there. If you want to get any federal funding, you better stop the DEI and that kind of stuff. It's we have gone backwards. We've gone back to the 60s. I don't think we're back in the 50s and 40s, but we definitely have gone back to the early 60s. And I don't we need to be rescued somehow. And if I were putting together a rescue plan, the first thing I would do is change the Senate minority. Very first thing,
Yeah.
to make the Congress a fighting Congress. Not a winning Congress, but a fighting Congress. The next thing I would do is I would order every single representative in Congress to go out to red districts across the country and
Absolutely.
start visiting and having town halls and setting and meeting with red people. I would order them to go on Fox News and Max. Take your lumps if you're going to take there. If you're not a good speaker, then bring somebody with you to translate if you need. So that would be the first step. The second step would be once you start that, then the midterms become an easier problem because he's so fucked up the economy. I can't see how it's going to come back. It doesn't. I don't see anything he's doing that's going to bring the economy come back. What I see is a lot of businesses are going to be bought out by very wealthy people, so they're going to take even more control over the economy. And then I would make not Trump the bad guy. I would make the wealthy the bad
Yeah.
guys. There's
Make it a
already
class war.
rage. Yeah, make it a real class war. Every time you go out to have a town hall or everything, you would attack the wealthy because the reality is it's the wealthy who are responsible for Donald Trump. They put him
Yeah.
there. They want him there. They don't really give a shit what he does with Russia. They don't care what he does with Ukraine. That has nothing to do with them. They want him there to make money. And so if they crash the economy, lower interest rates. Good for them because it's not they have the money to be able to withstand a crashed economy and take advantage of it. They know exactly what they're doing. So
Yeah.
that'd all be part of it. I wouldn't even attack Republicans by name. I would attack the wealthy at every single, just like Bernie's doing. Bernie's
Yeah.
Bernie's been doing this for years, but he seems like a lone person out there beating this drum. And now AOC is doing it, and a few others. So that would be my plan. My plan would be let's start with the Congress. Let's get rid of the ones that can't do and replace them with those that can do, that have some fight and have some spine, and let's get going. And then it would be nonstop, like you said, loud, obnoxious, and can you imagine you're a red Republican and a blue Republican comes into your district and holds a town hall there,
Absolutely. That's got
and
to
it's
drive
well
them
attended,
nuts.
it's well attended, and it'll be well attended, and it won't be Democrats only going there. And he's talking about Social Security, and he's talking about the wealthy, and I mean, they need to do this. That seems to be when you follow, like I do, when you follow trends. I think that's well understood by the Blue Tribe over there on that's over in Blue Sky. I don't follow Twitter, so but it seems to be that tribe fully understands what needs to be done by the thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions. They get what needs to be done. It's there. The answers are there, and they're just as simple as what we're talking about here on this podcast.
Well, a lot of people will see what's going on now and they'll ask the wrong question. How do we fix this? How do we fix it? How do we make a quick move to fix this? You can't. You could have fixed it in the election, but you chose not to, so we can't fix it. But what we got to do is at least get in the fight. And we haven't been in the fight up to this point. So now that's the only option. And they go, well, how will that fix it? Doesn't matter how that fixes it. We got to get in the fucking game first, and then we can worry about winning. But with us just sitting on our hands doing nothing, we're not in the fight. We're just being complicit, basically.
Yeah, what's the Raging Cajun? God, what is his name?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
Carville.
yeah,
Carville, right?
Carville,
So
yeah,
Carville said, hey, don't do anything. Totally wrong advice. Carville, go back to Louisiana, shut your mouth, and stay in Louisiana. And I love the guy. I liked him when him and his wife used to appear back in the 90s during the Clinton years. But
right.
he's wrong. He's wrong. And unfortunately, whatever him or somebody else has done to infect the Senate, to just sit on their hands and let them implode, that is not the same as having an agenda. Sitting there, the agenda can't be, well, let's watch the Republicans and Trump implode. Then what? What do you do? Nobody knows you. You haven't put anything out there. You haven't even been noticed. You've been sitting in the corner. So yeah, let's get out there and fight. So, you're doing it here every day, every day,
Every day,
every day.
every day, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
One last question. You just brought it up because we're going to wind down here, but um, people have been predicting or saying that's in the process that the Trump presidency is imploding. That's not surprising given all that's going on and all the troubles that are out there. But what does that even mean? I mean,
I,
in normal situations, they would have already said he's imploded with a normal president. But what's
that's
that
right.
mean if he implodes? What happens then? I don't
Right.
know.
He's got the same popularity with his base. Remember, he's just the president to his base. He doesn't care about it the rest of us. So what that
Right.
doesn't mean anything unless it implodes if the Republican Congress pushes back. And
Right.
until they push back,
It's on them.
then there's no implosion. There's nothing. He's enabled. If the Congress doesn't push back, if the Supreme Court doesn't push back, if the levers of power are still under his control, that means absolutely nothing. So the answer is he's not imploded. He's a little bit more unpopular. His ratings are a little bit poor, but so that was going to happen regardless. You can't take a turd and put it up there without it smelling pretty bad after a while.
Well, that's what I've said, and people have kind of pushed back on me. How do we fix this? Well, the Republicans have to fix it because they have the control, they have the power over Donald Trump. They need to do something, and we don't know what level that has to go to before they do it. It's unfortunate, but again, people can whine and cry about what situation we're in. But if you voted Republican or you decided not to vote, you put us here. You put us
Absolutely.
in this situation. So
Absolutely.
now to think that the Democrat, it's like when they say, well, where's Kamala? Where's Biden? Where the fuck do you want them to be? You kicked them out. Now you want them to come back and save you? Sorry, it's too fucking late.
No, you're absolutely right. I listen. The next big opportunity to get rid of him is to take over the House of Representatives. By that time, with any luck, he's going to be so far down in the polls that if we take over the House, they can impeach him again, and maybe, just maybe, the Senate would be a little bit more inclined to finally get rid of him.
Yeah.
Because at that point, maybe he's invaded Panama, or done
Yeah.
something equally stupid. He's just you should impeach him just on national security reasons. If he
Yeah.
takes us out of NATO, um, and or if Ukraine falls, there's reasons to impeach him. If he's caught giving intelligence to the Russians, there's reasons to impeach him. So, that's order number one, is to take over the House of Representatives. So if we can get that, there's a possibility. Now, if he was to be, let's say we win the next three special elections and Hakeem Jeffries takes over, it's too early. We need
Yeah.
more. We need to catch him in more. What he's doing is probably in violation of the Constitution, but it doesn't seem like it's enough to remove him from office. The Republicans wouldn't go along with it, and you're going to need the Republicans in the Senate to go along with it. But give it 2 more years. If things are as bad as they're going now, because everything's going downhill, listen, the people that voted for him, that are true MAGA, they think everything is great. They think he's
Yeah.
doing a wonderful job. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. So if he hovers in the polls at 35 to 40%, well, life is good for him. And
Yeah.
that's not what they're telling him anyway. His staff is saying, "Man, you're the most popular president ever in the history of the presidency." So he needs to step on it. But listen, keep doing what you're doing. I I don't have a podcast, and I've mentioned Blue Sky a lot of times. I started just by joining, and now I'm up to 14,000 followers. My
That's
goal is
impressive. I got four. I got 4,000. So you're kicking my ass.
my goal is 20,000 next, then up to 40,000, that kind of thing, where now you're making a difference. Because if you say you need to go out and protest, because there are protests in Washington, D.C., and there are protests in Chicago, and there's protests in New York City, now you're reaching some people, and maybe they go out and do it. Now you're influencing them, and so you
Right.
do your thing for TikTok and YouTube, and I'm going to continue to try to build a followership there. And because we have a plan. You and I, two old boomers, we have a plan. We know what needs to be done. We just need to influence enough people to go out and do it.
Absolutely. And people are going to ask, where can they find you on Blue Sky? How do they
Oh,
find you?
yeah. So it's T Night 02. So if you look up T Night 02, you'll see my ugly, ugly mug there staring into a camera. I'd be grateful for anybody that's on Blue Sky to go ahead and follow me. I think I'm not quite at 14. I think I'm at 13.800. It jumps up 100 to 200 at a time. So audience, if
So check
you, I would love to have you.
so check out Tony at T as in
And
Tony,
and I
nine.
T TNITE tonight. TNITE 02.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you said that. Say it one more time so people get it.
Yeah, so it's TNITE 02. And then the rest of it that's at Blue Sky. And that's where
All
I'm
right.
at.
Well, check out Tony. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. I know it's going to be a good and informative conversation. So thank you for coming by.
Yeah, this was for the audience. I just contacted Mike, 2 hours before, and said, "Hey, I'm
Oh,
ready. I'm loaded up. I got a lot of ammunition." And Mike said, "Yeah, tonight." And we made it
yeah.
happen.
I'm always anxious to talk to Tony because I know it's going to be a good show. So thanks, Tony. And those of you listening, thanks for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.